Greetings everyone. Alright, so now we're going to head into part 2 of our topic, low self-esteem. In part 1 we covered some issues that surrounded low self-esteem and how self-esteem actually comes about. Because obviously low self-esteem doesn't just come by itself or it just come by an accident. It actually spawns from something that usually happens in people's lives. So it's very, very important that if you haven't watched part 1, I recommend, highly recommend that you watch part 1 first so that you're able to understand what we're going to go through in part 2, which we're going to begin right now. Okay, so part 1 is right over here. If you want to click here, it will take you to part 1, and obviously it will show you exactly what we covered regarding how low self-esteem rises. And obviously I really recommend that you watch it because it will make a whole lot of sense as we now begin part 2. Now, before we left part 1, we asked the question, how do we maintain this mindset of overcoming low self-esteem? Because although you may overcome at one point, there also may be areas where you might think, okay, I'm okay now, but then something happens along the lines and then you go back to the same trap that you was in when you had low self-esteem to begin with. Because even for me, when I had low self-esteem, I actually had to take some practical steps to make sure that this never happens again. And I also understand that the devil is always waiting at every single moment to try and keep us in this mindset of low self-esteem, which is in other words destroying us internally. There's a principle that I read in the Bible and also in this quote that I'm going to read. This quote is from the book Our High Calling. Notice the principle and try and see if you can understand what it's actually saying. No renewed heart can be kept in a condition of sweetness without the daily application of the salt of the word. Divine grace must be received daily, or no man will stay converted. So obviously the principle that we're looking at here is that it's not a case of, okay, then I've done this for today and then that's going to keep me for tomorrow. What this is actually saying is that this is an ongoing process. Things have to be maintained in order for us to be overcomers. Now there's a Bible verse which I'm sure will help us in this maintenance of overcoming or avoiding low self-esteem. Notice this verse very carefully and try again to see the practical points. But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. See, when it comes to neglecting the mindset that you have to be accepted by this way or that way according to the world's standards, you would obviously then start to introduce something to replace those mindsets that you used to have. And it's an obvious fact that the more you start to dwell upon these good things, is the more you start to become those good things. So based upon the verse that we've just read, because we're seeing a transition here, there's two questions that really come to mind. The first question is, what is this image that we are changed into, and what is this glory? Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 says, "And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness." Okay, so basically what we're seeing here when it refers to this image, we're talking about the image of God, or as it says, the likeness of God. In other words, to be like God. And so with that question answered, we do need to answer the other question, which is, what is this God's glory? What is it referring to? Simply because when we behold it, we are then transformed into it. Notice what the prophet Moses says and see exactly the practical lessons that we're now going to gather from it. Exodus chapter 33 verse 18 and 19 says, "And he said, I beseech thee, show me thy glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee, and will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and will show mercy on whom I will show mercy." Okay, so what we're seeing here is that Moses asked God, "God, can I see your glory?" And God says, "Sure, I will show you my goodness." But then Moses asked for God's glory, and God says, "Yeah, I'll show you my goodness." And then God goes on further to say that I am gracious and I am also merciful. So basically what you're seeing is that God's glory is his character. So just from what we've established here, can we start to see the difference in the change of status between God and the world? God looks on the inward, while the world uplifts and idolizes the outward. Now, just using the example of women, it's the case where, they're more under pressure because of the image that the world portrays about them. But if they put their esteem in the Lord, notice how the Lord feels about women who truly value themselves. 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 3 and 4 says, "Whose adorning, let it not be on the outward adorning of plaiting of hair and of wearing of gold or of putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God a great price." So in essence, what we're looking at here is based upon the the message that you're giving to the world in a nutshell. Because automatically how I display myself is going to be the attention that I'm actually asking for. Now I want to give you a very quick example. This is an experiment that I saw on YouTube, and I'm going to show you exactly how, important it is. And I think this demonstration was a very good demonstration based upon this fact. Now this video that I'm referring to is a video of a Muslim woman who played out two scenarios. Now in one scenario she was wearing a hijab, and the other scenario she was wearing tight clothing. Now in the video where the woman was wearing tight clothing, she received countless taunts and hints of a sexual nature. And it even got to the point that there was one guy that was following her for a fair amount of time.
Oh, I'm not interested. No.
But now as soon as she wore the hijab, she received not one single taunt. Now friends, as we come to a close, I do want to emphasize the point that we've mentioned in part 1, that the gospel is a wonderful simplifier of life's problems. For those who feel that they have to be accepted by the world based upon how they have to look, how they have to behave, how they have to act, you do not have to go through those things based upon what they're trying to pull out in you, simply because there is one higher than what this world has to offer, to the point that he was willing to give himself just for you. And I'm sure that that's something better, more comfortable, more safer, more uplifting to place your esteem on. Okay friends, so now that we've come to understand the process of how to avoid self-esteem, let's just now put these points into 3 main points just for us to gather and just to make sure that we're maintaining this mindset of overcoming low self-esteem. Okay, so let's notice some practicalities. Point number 1, Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21, it says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof." So with the verse that you're seeing here right now, we can see that our lives and our lifestyles can actually depend upon the things that we say about ourselves and the things that we can say to others. One can say you're worthless, you're ugly, nobody loves you, you're a complete failure. Now one can say that to someone, and in result that person, if they're weak-minded, will think that they are those things mentioned. Why? Well, as we understood, by beholding we become changed. So if positive things are mentioned, such as you're fearfully and wonderfully made, you're a child of the King, you're worth an eternal price through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, the one who created this world, what do you think that would do to the mindset of somebody? It will obviously produce positive esteem. The next practical point comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 33, which says, "Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners." Okay, so with that being said, we can get this idea that certain communications can corrupt our actual good manners. Therefore, with this point, you want to be around people who speak positive things. Therefore, you receive a positive mind. You want to avoid associations that speak perverse things. That also goes for what you watch. If you're watching things that send off wrong messages, change the things that you watch. Watch positive things which have worth and fulfilling messages. It's all about having a complete change of mindset. And remember that these things only happen because of what we saw in part 1. And the last step that we want to go through is based on John chapter 3 verse 16, which says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." And this point is simply saying the following: give your self-esteem to the Lord, and realize that if the infinite one, the infinite God, gave the only one like himself, it means that no matter what people say, you are worth an eternal price. So friends, I do believe that this information and these steps will help you in your practical walks when it comes towards this issue of self-esteem, because obviously the gospel is a wonderful simplifier of life's problems. Now friends, I do believe that there is a lot more that could have been said in this video, but obviously time won't do it justice. But I do want to mention at the end of this video that I have attached a link which will show you the full presentation that I've done called The Heavenly Attire. This video goes into a lot of things like our own self-esteem problems, why we do certain things, and how we can also avoid it on a much more deeper and detailed scale. So wait till the end of this video and you'll be able to see it. So friends, thank you very much for watching this series on the topic of low self-esteem. Again, if you know anybody who has a struggle with low self-esteem and you believe these two parts of these videos may help them, please share it to them so that they have an opportunity to know how to overcome low self-esteem. They may also see that the gospel is indeed a wonderful simplifier of life's problems. Okay, thank you very much for watching. God bless. Bye for now. I can imagine how Jesus must have felt whilst making us, and finally Christ breathing that breath of life into man, as if he was precipitating one who had no breath. And finally, man seeing Jesus Christ, the one who gave life to man.